the legacy of slavery, Jim Crow, discrimination in almost every institution of our lives, that casts a long shadow, and that's still part of our DNA. That's passed on. We're not cured of it. Racism. We are not cured of.
Clearly.
And it's not just a matter of it not being polite to say nigger in public. That's not the measure of whether racism still exists or not. It's not just a matter of overt discrimination.
All right, folks. Joining us now is John Gizzi, Newsmax White House Correspondent, Newsmax Chief Political Columnist. John, always great to talk to you, sir, and see you. And you were at the White House press briefing earlier today, where certainly this was topic number one.
Absolutely. Discussion was dominated by the president's use of the N-word, and I assure you that word wasn't Newsmax. The fact is that the White House is not backing down from the president's use of the word. Major Garrett of CBS noted correctly that the president is someone who is a master of language and very careful about his choice of words. He rarely makes mistakes when he speaks or has unintentional consequences from his words. And Josh Earnest did not disagree with Major. He said that the president said this. It may be provocative, but it's also a way of saying we can learn from the 50s, 60s, and 70s today and from civil rights champions such as John Lewis and Martin Luther King. Now again, was it justified in using the N-word? I don't know. This is a president who knows exactly what he's going to say. Will he be criticized for it? I'm sure you're going to find people who do, but remember, Lyndon Johnson very casually used the word, including around black people, among them the first black justice in the Supreme Court, whom he appointed, Thurgood Marshall. And yet Johnson was also the greatest civil rights champion in the White House since Lincoln. No person, black or white, criticized him for it, or does to this day. No one will criticize America's first black president for it.
Well, I'm criticizing him. And by the way, that Lyndon Johnson was 50 years ago. I'm not saying it was right to do it, but it was 50 years ago. And certainly Barack Obama, a skeptic might say, on the first day of summer, on what many people are predicting could be a powder keg around the country with unrest over police incidents and perceived police incidents, and now on the heels of a shooting of a black church by a white man, the president uses the N-word. Some might say he knows exactly what he's doing.
Well, again, I'm not going to opine or divine his motives, Steve. I'm telling you what the White House said.
Absolutely.
Again, they are not backing down.
Right. And he's the same president who in 2008 in Philadelphia, when talking about the campaign, interestingly enough, since he now wants to clamp down on guns yet again, said if they bring a knife to the fight, I'll bring a gun. So, of course, the media doesn't like to talk about that. Let's move on to the Confederate flag, something else the media doesn't like to talk about, although I'll credit Jake Tapper on his show yesterday, did bring up the fact, as I've been saying forever, that Bill Clinton, when he was governor of Arkansas, flew the Confederate flag over the State House, signed Confederate Flag Day into law. Hillary stood under that flag, and now yesterday Hillary's talking about how, these are conversations we don't like to have, and it's well, you got to have conversations at the dinner table, and it's the little mumbling under people's breath. When her husband flew the Confederate flag at the State House, why, as a presidential candidate, shouldn't she be taken to task to explain or justify or condemn what her husband did?
There's going to be a lot of people, Steve, who are going to have to look back and explain this. In South Carolina, the flag was initially flown, this is the Confederate battle flag, by a Democratic governor, Ernest Fritz Hollings, who went on to serve in the Senate and run for president. The person who took it and put it on display rather than flying it over the Capitol was a conservative Republican whom I knew quite well, the late Governor Carroll Campbell. Now they're talking about taking it out altogether, and this is coming from the current conservative Republican governor, Nikki Haley.
Right, and I think one good point that Mike Huckabee made yesterday, John, is that You know, look at South Carolina, look at the diversity. They have a black senator, they have an Indian descent governor, much more diverse than, let's say, the governors and the senators from New York or California.
Right.
And you know, and people think that that the flag is an issue, and I just think this is snowballing and not stopping. But let's move on very quickly to Greece. There's a lot of talk about Russia bailing out Greece, and how the United States would lose big time if that happens. I know that was discussed at the press briefing today as well.
I asked Josh Earnest that very question. Governor Kasich of Ohio, a very likely Republican presidential candidate, told Newsmax over the weekend that it would be, quote, a very, very ugly scenario, unquote, if Russia bailed out Greece, and then Greece in turn became an ally of President Putin, particularly at a time when the EU just renewed its sanctions against Russia for its seizure of Crimea. This could well come about if Russia comes to the financial aid of Athens. Now,
we got 30 seconds, so go ahead, John.
The White House, the response simply is, and I quote, "The two countries you mention are not having the best of economies these days," end of quote, and they reiterated their call for Greece to work with its partners, its creditors, to resolve the situation. I said to Josh Earnest, nothing on Russia. He said, nothing on Russia.
Nothing on Russia. All right, John, great to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, as always.
Always a pleasure.
Up next, mine too, radio personality and celebrity journalist Pavlina Asta. Wait till you see this young lady. Don't go away.